and that this is more than just his usual rhetoric.
Yeah, Jim, it's not a stretch at all. This is how Stephen Miller, who's likely to be one of Trump's cabinet secretaries in a second term, described a second term to me. He actually specifically described day one to me. He said, day one, when we win, will be a shock and awe blitz. Now, you've got to take him at his word. What does Stephen Miller mean by that? He means in a second go around, there's not going to be years of delay and indecision about whether to moderate Trump's position so he can win a second term. It will be throwing the kitchen sink at American democracy and doing all the things he's wanted to do by abusing federal power for partisan political purposes. That's what they're going to try to do on day one. And the pieces that worry me the most, Jim, are the weaponization of the national security community. I mean, that's where, if you look anywhere in history, you see the most grievous abuses of power is when the army or domestic security forces are used against a leader's political enemies. And those are things that aren't just forecasts of what Trump could do. He's talked about weaponizing the spy community to spy on his adversaries. He has talked about creating his own mercenary force within the military so he doesn't have to go through a chain of command that he worries would disobey him. He's talked about using the Department of Homeland Security to intimidate his opponents in Democratic sanctuary cities and to make sure that blue states don't get aid and red states do when there's natural disasters. I mean, this is laid out very clear. We know what will happen, and I do worry. It will be likely the end of the American Republic as we know it if he comes back. Something that, again, 5, 6, 7 years ago, if you'd asked me, would have sounded like a crazy statement, but it's the reality.
Yeah, and Miles, Axios was reporting, some of the people that Trump plans to elevate into another administration. I mean, these names are not surprising. People like Stephen Miller, Steve, you mentioned earlier, Steve Bannon, Kash Patel. And then Kash Patel said this about Trump's plans for retribution and retaliation.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you.
Yeah, Miles, what did you think of that?
Well, look, I mean, Jim, I've been told to prepare for lawsuits. So the Justice Department was preparing actions against me under the Trump administration. I think other people that turned against Trump, people in the media, they should take Kash Patel seriously because people like Kash Patel will be in leadership positions. Now, Jim, the rejoinder you're going to hear to that from an elected Republican is no, he's not going to put extreme people in those positions. And even if he tries to, the U.S. Senate under the Constitution must offer advice and consent and confirm these people. Ain't wrong. That's not what will happen. And I'll give you an example. At the end of the Trump administration, Donald Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security for a year and a half, my former colleague, Chad Wolf, was determined by a federal judge to have been appointed to that position illegally. Do you know what the consequences were? There were not consequences for that. Trump learned a lesson. He can put people in posts. He doesn't have to get them confirmed. And even if Congress objects, Congress can't enforce its own laws. We should expect that. We should go into a second Trump administration clear-eyed that these people will have their hands on the levers of power.
Yeah, and Miles, I remember when I was doing my reporting during the Trump administration, one of the things that a senior White House official told me about Trump and his discussions about cabinet officials and so on, he once said to some of his aides, how long can I keep acting secretaries around? That was going through his mind. He wanted to know how long he can keep an acting secretary around because of these reasons that you talk about. You can circumvent a congressional oversight. Well, Miles, great to talk to you as always. We appreciate it. We'll do it again some other time soon, but we're sure